The home should be 10 times cheaper than the car on a cost per square foot standpoint, but it's not. If you look at like how those two things are made, it's night and day. A lot of the constraints around how homes are made and how long it takes is because it's an incredibly fragmented way of building. We saw very early on that big change was needed to make homes better, faster, higher quality at scale. The only way to do that is vertical integration.
This is Alexis Rivas, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Cover, which is building a bunch of houses now. Do you want to just start off with the general situation with housing in America? I think that there's millions of unmet housing demand right now. It's a huge market.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're in one of them right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's something like, depending on measures, between 5 and 10 million home shortage in the United States, right? And that's just the U.S. And this is not a purely U.S. problem, though it is pretty bad here. Housing is not fungible, right? There's hundreds of thousands or millions of abandoned homes in the U.S. That doesn't mean they're in places people want to live, right? Or they're in a shape that they can be lived in. So and populations move, right? So places where there's housing booms and then people move out of there for whatever reason. So this is this dynamic thing, right? Like if you kind of zoom out and you look at like, a multi-decade lens, where people want to live and where there's a need for homes does evolve.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a need to respond to that and to build homes where people want to live. And so there's a huge shortage in a lot of places. I mean, we're in Los Angeles right now, huge shortage of housing in all of California, especially Southern California, near LA and around also the Bay Area, like massive housing shortage. But it is not just a problem here. It's a big problem.
Yeah. And did you actually make the decision? Because I've talked with a few other, housing founders, and they are trying to go where the regulation in the city is much more willing to kind of want to build new housing. I think that there's a lot of places in Nevada where they're trying to build new housing, like Austin's really happy to put up new houses. San Francisco and I think LA are both very, very difficult. So why'd you choose to be here?
Yeah. So kind of looked at there's a little bit of like, how we got started, and that leads into, why we chose to start here. We actually did 9 months in the Bay Area before we decided to come to Southern California. Part of the reason was the cost of housing and factories. Like factory space would have been insanely expensive in the Bay Area. And we were talking to, Tesla engineers and the Tesla staff at the time who, people commute three hours each way to get to the Tesla factory. I mean, that's insane. That is not a sustainable, they made it work, and kudos to them for doing so, but that's really tough.
Yeah.
Tough on your staff. Right. And that was a while ago. I think the problem has gotten worse since then. And so we started off 9 months in the Bay Area and then moved down to LA. So we're in Gardena right now, just in the South Bay, close to Manhattan Beach. And the reason for starting off, in California and in Southern California is this is a problem that has been tried to solve many times before, right? Like building homes in a factory is not a new idea. This idea has been around for like 100 years. But it's been tried. Many companies have failed trying to do this. Most people approach it like, let's build lots of homes cheaply, fast, right? Which is all good. But then they develop a reputation for being low quality, something people don't want. And they associate them with mobile homes, right? Like a lot of people, when they think manufactured homes, the image that comes to mind is a mobile home park.
Yeah, it's something that's kind of like shitty that you live in only if you have to.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's unfortunately the perception, right? And so, and this perception has been around for a long time. And so when we were starting the company, we said one of the major things we had to overcome to become successful and flip the model of make most homes be built this way is prove to the world that this is a better way to build first. And for us, that meant starting off in the high end of the market.
Yeah.
And the best place probably in the world to build high-end homes is Southern California.
When we were talking a few days ago, you mentioned that you're just going and figuring out how to build houses that people didn't even realize they could build. People are spending like $60,000 or whatever to figure out how to get some plot of land and make it work. Whereas you're just like doing a like full stack, you just come in, build the house on someone's land, and make it work. Do you want to talk about like how you got the first few customers and how you're thinking about that?
So the way that homes are built conventionally, right? There's kind of like two main buckets. There's you buy a home. You're not building as a homeowner. You're not building a home. You're just buying a home from a real estate developer, and that's actually how most people buy homes. They just buy a home that a builder
it just
builds.
happens to already be built. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the majority, right? When it comes to custom homes, it's an extremely fragmented process, right? You have a whole group of consultants before you even break ground, right? You've got your architect, you've got your engineer, you've got your surveyor. Oftentimes you have to loop in like specialty permitting expediters and arborists sometimes, and geotechnical report, geotech engineer, surveyors, like all these civil for drainage, especially for sometimes hopefully it doesn't happen, but environmental reports and all this other stuff. So it's a very fragmented process. And I studied architecture. I helped family and friends build a home when I was 14. I saw the process up close, and I also interned at some architecture firms and saw the process from that side of things. And what I realized was like a lot of the constraints around how homes are made and how long it takes is because it's an incredibly fragmented way of building. Right? You have all these consultants. That's just before you break ground. I mean, once you break ground, you still have your general contractor. They usually don't have a big staff in-house. They usually have all their subcontractors. Their electrician, their framer, their painter. It's usually different companies, right? And so you have this extremely fragmented approach to building. And if you want to change something, you kind of have to either change it all, right? And you own that full stack and you say, I'm just going to do things differently and make it work better. Right? Or you have to change it in like very minor ways that integrates with the existing system. And, we saw very early on that like big change was needed to fix and, make homes better, faster, higher quality at scale. And the only way to do that is vertical integration. Right? You just have to.
Yeah. It just doesn't work elsewise.
You have to. Yeah.
How did you think about going from just starting a company to actually building the first home, and then from there figuring out how to build this factory so that you can build much more at a higher scale?
Yeah, the approach was always like start small, and like optimize for learning, right? And this is a problem. Like as a problem, there's a few things that we know really well, right? People need homes. That's not going to change, right? So there is a market, right? If you can build a better home, I'd say even at the same speed, at the same cost, you're going to win, right? If you can build a better home faster and at lower cost, you're really going to win, right? These are known things, right? So, but doing that is actually very hard, right? So this isn't the kind of problem where you have to like chase revenue growth super early on.
Yeah, it's like figuring out the process is the main, like the factory is the main hard part.
Yeah, figuring out the product and the process and how they work together and like making something that people really want and is high quality at that better price point, like creating that value. That's the hard part.
I'd like to talk about, like you said, you're targeting the Roadster version of this. You want something that's super high quality from day zero. How have you thought about like the design? You went to design school. How did you kind of come up with this design and go through that process? What was that like?
So from the very beginning, the goal was to deliver at a quality that you normally only see in like multi-million-dollar homes, right? And kind of systematize that, and bring that to more people. And went to architecture school. Thomas, who leads design here, went to school with me, and from the beginning, it was like it's kind of simple, right? Mm-hmm. Like simple design choices, but executed very well. So lots of glass, right? Big windows. Turns out when you have really big windows, in order to be energy efficient and comfortable, you need to have really high performance, right?
Like so good insulation and stuff.
Good insulation, air tightness, right? Like all of these things actually become even more important because you're kind of making up for the energy loss through the windows. So in many ways, like the design also drove the engineering of the product too. We have like way more glass than your average home, right? Like every home, like even a cover home that has like what we would consider less glass has like a lot more glass than your average home.
Are you like optimizing for natural light?
It's like natural light, views to like greenery outside, Yeah, for sure. And it makes a huge difference in just like how a space, like you wake up in a space and it's bright and like it's nice, right? I mean, obviously blackout curtains are also good. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's talk through like you said that there was 3 separate kind of iterations before you had something that was really, really good that, people actually wanted to live in. Do you want to walk through like what that first one, what the second one, and what the third one was like and what you learned?
Yeah. So we went to building like very fast. Because the approach was, let's just build and we'll learn by building, right? Again, optimize for learning. So we had an idea and we just started building it. And like the first one it didn't work well. It was,
And why was that?
I mean, that was almost like we went to building it too quickly. It was just, there were basic things that you would have caught if you had done a full, model and full set of drawings and cut-throughs. And it's like, we just really rushed to build, right? We were kind of designing as we were building. Nobody was living in that one. And like learned what a tolerance stack up was on that. And these very basic things. So learned quickly. Then the second iteration, I'd say was directionally
like directionally correct.
It was directionally correct, but like the execution wasn't good, right? And it ended up actually being like a beautiful home, and it got published in like it was the end result was good because we took a lot of pride in our work and we like made it good, but it wasn't good in a way that scales well.
Yeah.
Right.
It was something that you can make once, but it's not going to.
Yeah, it was bespoke architecture, right? That was trying to be efficient, but it wasn't. And then the third one, we actually built the home in like a 1-bedroom home with a kitchen and bathroom in 8 days.
Wow.
And that was like 8 unsustainably long days.
A little bit of burning the 3M oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot of that actually. Like it was not sustainable in any so it's not really 8 days, but I think if we're looking at like hours, it'd probably be like 3 weeks worth of hours in 8 days, at least. But still, like that's pretty efficient. And so that version we ended up actually building a lot. We continue to iterate and improve and always
something that you could actually build and ship.
But we started shipping that one, right? And we and people are living in those. And then last year we rolled in like another kind of major change after building a lot of those, kind of like seeing the data points of like where we could make things better. And a lot of these changes are not necessarily the things the customer sees. Right. It's a lot of like how things come together, right? The tolerance stack up, the precision required, and like the tool, the process behind how to make the parts, right? It is like, optimizing the factory. And then of course to do that, you have to make product changes, right? So that was like the third one, which is what we're in right now. And
was that third one just initially kind of like a more smaller ADU situation where you kind of want to just get the reps in for building it?
Yeah, well, the ADU thing was we actually didn't know at the beginning when we started to cover that we wanted to build ADUs. We our mission at Cover from the very beginning was, and it continues to be, to make thoughtfully designed and well-built homes for everyone. And the focus was like, how do you optimize for rate of learning? And you can learn a lot more by building, 500 square foot units or, small homes than one 2,500 square foot home.
Yeah. You're getting the process learnings. Yeah.
Right. You get more reps in, you get the process down, you can iterate between them, like fix the mistakes you made on the one right on the next one. So it's like the ADU thing was a choice in order to optimize the rate of learning. The entire system from day one was designed with scaling to larger homes in mind. And even the ADUs, we built, one of the earliest structures we built was a single family home. It was named the coolest Airbnb in California by Condé Nast, and it was in the middle of the desert.
What happened when that happened?
It was cool. It was like, oh wow, that's like we didn't even like the owner pushed for that PR. We just saw it and it was great. That was a cool moment. But yeah, the system from day one was designed with full size homes in mind. And we just like intentionally constrained ourselves to learn faster and iterate faster.
At what stage are you going to be trying to build like multi-million dollar style houses that are, much bigger, like multifamily kind of situations versus just doing this? Like how much learning do you want to do in between now and then?
We are doing homes now.
Yeah.
Or we're not doing multifamily. So like we're not doing apartment buildings. But we are doing like full size homes, multi-million dollar homes. We're building one that's 2,300 square feet like right now. And so that's a 2,300 square foot home with a 800 square foot guest house. So it's a big project.
Yeah, it's big.
And then we've got another one in the permitting process, and that one's over 4,000 square feet. So there's big homes in the pipeline, and that's not the only one. That's like there's a few that are over 3,000 square feet. So we've shifted. We are doing ADUs and full size homes now.
If you want to build the best product, you kind of have to be very close to it, and you have to be like either living in it or going and seeing, the processes. Like the factory is one thing, but then you also have to actually see like the production process. Like how does that work? How are you deciding like where do you focus your time when you could be here and trying to make more panels, or you could be out in the field with engineers that are actually putting these things together?
You have to do both.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on like where the problem is, right? Like where's the...
Are you going to the biggest fire?
Yeah, you go to what's the biggest problem? What's the biggest thing gating the company from achieving the mission, right? Okay, go work on that, or yeah, I mean, help whoever's working on that, like accelerate, or that's really what it is. But like the one that we built in 8 days, like I was helping build it physically, right? And I've done that since then as well, right? Like multiple times. Build parts in the production line, occasionally like jump into the design process and like test out our design software and the systems, and like, go through the process of designing a cover home and giving feedback to the software team, talking to clients, right? Getting their feedback. Like it's
constantly changing.
It's constantly changing. It's constantly changing depending on where we are.
Where do you think like the biggest fire is right now?
We've got a lot to build. And we're ramping hard, and we're seeing where the processes start to break. Right, we're growing the on-site assembly teams. Right, the teams that take the panels that we make in the factory and then turn them into a home. And with that comes a lot of new training, right? And so that's a big area right now. The factory actually could produce a lot more than we're building right now. And
really?
It is producing at a faster rate than we're installing. And so fixing that install problem, going even faster on the on-site assembly is that's where a lot of the focus is right now.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned when we were walking around, you said that you're trying to get that down to basically like 28 days, I believe.
It depends on the size of the home, right?
Okay. Like it'll depend if it's like 2,000 square feet or this place versus like 4,000. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this place we've built in less than a month before, right? And we're trying to get that basically at the limit of what is physically possible. So, we're talking about like, you're basically moving materials to the right spot, and then it just clicks together like Legos. Some parts work like that today, and then some parts are supposed to work like that today, but they don't.
Outside of like manufacturing, what's the hardest thing that's like stopping, you from moving faster?
It's not, so that's not, I wouldn't even really consider that a manufacturing problem, because it is. If you consider the on-site assembly to be like a general assembly process, right? Then yeah, that's a manufacturing problem. That's the hardest part right now.
Is just figuring out the on-site assembly.
Figuring that out, and then scaling those teams, right?
Yeah.
Like finding the right people, scaling, attracting the right talent, getting them onboarded, yeah, all of that.
And so when you were putting together the first like assembly team, what were you trying to optimize for versus today?
The first few homes were built by a mixture of the technicians and the engineers. Like it was we were one team, and we would design and then we would build. So a big part of what we've done is moved most of the complexity into the factory, so that what happens on site doesn't really look like conventional construction. Like you don't necessarily need an expert plumber, an electrician, all of these, very, millwork, carpenter, right? You don't necessarily need all of those trades. You do need people who, are willing to work hard, can follow instructions well, can be aware of like, moving things around, like not breaking stuff. It sounds simple, but
Has that been one of the biggest
yeah,
issues?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on an assembly site, right? Moving stuff around. You've got to be like aware of what's going on, right? And paying attention, right? Um, and it is hard work. It's hard work. So but it's also incredibly rewarding because within whereas like normally if you're working in construction, you show up at a job site, you do your part, you never even see the finished product unless you're the painter, right? With our crew, they get to show up on site from start to finish, right? They show up and there's just a foundation. And then by the time they leave, it's ready to move into. And they did that. So it's incredibly motivating, right? Like it's not an easy role, but it's like an incredibly rewarding, motivating feeling. And that's what we're trying to do. Like we're trying to bring people from outside of the construction industry also into building these homes with us. And a lot of people don't have prior construction experience. Some do, not all of them.
Yeah. Tell me about so there's been a number of companies that have tried to do like mass manufactured homes. And I think this is kind of the right model where you're starting with the high end, making something that's beautiful and amazing and that people actually want to live in. And then you're trying to figure out how to scale that process in production. What has kind of been the biggest like pitfall for other companies that have tried to tackle this problem? Because it's a massive problem. Like there are millions of, you said 10 million unmet housing demand. Insane.
Yeah, somewhere between 5 and 10. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can just make houses great and efficiently, then you have a huge market. But for some reason, people just haven't been able to pull it off significantly.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It takes doing a lot of things right. And then I think there's also, because it's such a big opportunity, there's a desire to go big quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's a lot of failure modes, right? I think some of the common ones are lack of focus and like going too big too quickly. I've seen companies that like actually figured it out, right? And they were doing something and it was working and they were around for a while. And then they just like chased the wrong growth. And then that did it, for example. Another common failure mode I see is like spreading yourself thin geographically, right? I'll see companies like they come up with like a cool product or they had a cool product, but they were trying to roll it out nationwide. The Southern California residential construction market is like a multi-billion-dollar market, right? If we've got something that's working well, we can scale it quite a bit just in Southern California. Yeah, that's what we're doing, right? Today we're serving Southern California. So it's that discipline to say like we're going to focus and get really, really good at this narrower subset of the market. And yes, we want to become huge and tackle all of these things, right? We want to build across the entire Sun Belt and across the entire country, and do multifamily as well. And our system actually scales pretty well up to 4 to 6 stories. So like we'll get there, but starting off and basically doing like almost 10 years focused on ADUs, and then saying, okay, yeah, like this is working well enough. Let's do single family homes too. And now we're doing that. And we're going to do that for a while. And then we're going to do multifamily. It's like that discipline to say, this is actually a hard problem and we need to get really, really good at it before expanding the scope. Because if you combine like, if you combine like too big of a problem without enough like focus, you just
run
don't
in a bunch
win.
of different directions and nothing actually works.
Nothing, you don't actually make real progress, right?
Yeah.
You're just trying to solve a bunch of hard problems and you don't solve them. So that's been a common failure mode I've seen.
Yeah. And so right now you're just basically laser focused on figuring out how to scale up this site in California, or in Southern, even just LA, and make sure that you can build houses at a meaningful pace with a number of hands.
Yes.
There.
Yeah. And getting really, really efficient at it and delivering an incredible experience to the customer, right? Like they're like, wow, this is not only, are they impressed by like the speed and the experience, but like they walk in and this is at the level of,
they're happy with the thing.
They're very happy with it, right? And delivering at a level that would not be possible conventionally.
Do you want to just walk me through the process of like what is the process from someone knocking on your door or saying, I want to cover house, to actually having something on the ground?
Yeah. First, most people like reach out, either phone, email, something like that, talk to us, get a sense that this is something that they're at least interested in.
Yeah.
Then we do design study basically. So, you're not entirely sure you want to build with us, but like you at least want to explore what that would look like. So we meet with you on your property. Our design team will give you a proposal based on what you want. So it's very bespoke. Like we go into detail about like what you're looking for, your views, right? You want to keep this tree. Okay, cool. Like we'll design around that. It's the nice thing is it's like Lego blocks, right? So this is actually another thing going back to the, failure modes. A lot of prefab companies take this approach where it's like model based, right? They have like 5 models or maybe 10 models or 20 models, but it's models, right? And from the very beginning, we said that doesn't work. There's just too much variance in the number of in the shapes and sizes of properties and zoning restrictions and all. There's all this complexity in the physical world that construction adapts to. And so we said we're going to develop a very versatile system that allows basically mass customization, right? It's really like Legos for real homes, right? So it's wall panels, floor panels, roof panels. So going back to, we'll design something specific to that customer and what they're looking for, show them what that looks like on their property, and present price for that. And usually there's a little bit of iteration, and then they say, okay, yep, let's move forward, sign a contract, and then we take care of the entire permitting process as well.
So how does that work? Because that must be a bitch.
Yeah, that was a big learning curve. And
is this one of those things where you're really happy that you started small and started just with one to figure out that process? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've permitted it's like over 50 homes, right? And we still run into edge cases, right? Yeah. Permitting is definitely complex, but the basics of it is like you put together, your engineering set for the building and your drawings, right? You submit that to the city, and then they put you through a bunch of forms and questions, and maybe you got to clarify a few things, and eventually you get a permit, right? It's like way oversimplified. I think others have like mapped out this process with extensive flow charts and conditionals, and it is annoyingly complex. And this is something that I think we really need to change as a society. Like we need to get better at building things and make it easier to build.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like even with startups in general, I think when Amazon first started, it costs over $1 million just to like put a website online, or to have all that infrastructure ready to go so the customers could actually like order something on a page. And today it's like $250. You might not even need to incorporate, but you can do $250 in Stripe Atlas, and then you set up Stripe and like the banking for Mercury and Stripe as well, pretty much same day, and it's basically you're in business. And it's like, do you have a product that you want to sell, and do people want to buy it? Whereas today, like with housing, how much of the time, you say like 28 days spent on site putting a thing together, how much time is spent in the background before you can even get on site to do that?
Yeah. So the fastest home that we've ever built.
Yeah.
104 days from permit submittal to certificate of occupancy. Certificate of occupancy is like you're done and the city says you're done and you can move in. That's the fastest we've ever done. More than half of that was regulatory, right? So either inspections at the end,
like 50 days of just that.
Yeah. And of course the permitting process in the beginning, right? Like, so it took longer to do the paperwork to build the home than to build the home, right? That's nuts.
SpaceX, I believe it was during, I think it was like 2022 or 2023, something like that. They ran into an issue where they were pouring potable drinking water on the ground under one of their launch pads when they were first launching.
I heard about that, yeah.
I think the Starship, and they got fined like $158,000, something like that, for doing that. And it wasn't even dangerous. Like the FAA didn't think there was any issue, but they were just like, you're pouring water on the ground, so we're gonna, unless you pay this fine, you just don't get to, launch any more Starships. Is that kind of the situation that we're in right now, where the people that are deciding how to regulate, how to permit, are not really focused on trying to get more housing built?
Okay, so we are able to get permits consistently.
Yeah.
How long it takes, there's definitely variance there. Like I wish we could say this type of permit will take exactly, I wish it would be like, 48 hours or something. But I wish I could even say, this will take 2 months, right? But sometimes it's 3 months and sometimes it's a year, right? And there might be new things that the city requires, or some department, right? Sometimes you have like 8 different departments involved that need to sign off on a project, and so 7 of those 8 departments might be responding within a month, and that last department has a big backlog, and it's going to take 4 months. And this has happened before. So and which department is slow honestly changes over time. That's the other thing that we've seen. It's not the same. It's 2 years ago, it's different from what it is now. So you can't even predict, where it's going to go slow sometimes, right? So we've gotten really good at this, and our approach to permitting is like just try to get everything as fast as possible, right? And just prepare documentation that's really comprehensive up front, so that there's very few excuses that they can give to deny or ask for clarification, and then just repeated follow up, and we do escalate the situation with city council members or staff or people in the governor's office, and I think there's a general awareness this is a problem, and I think there's talk and some genuine desire to fix it from some places, but the problem is really bad, and it requires a shift in priorities and a real willpower to fix the act. Like there's like an incremental mentality, and this needs we're going to start from a blank slate,
like an open heart surgery sort of situation.
It needs open heart surgery, right? We need to go back to where we were with permits probably 50 to 80 years ago. Keep from a safety standpoint, keep all of the advances that we've made. We should definitely be taking advantage of everything we learned about earthquakes and everything we learned about safety and using those things. But from a process standpoint, we just need to simplify things. And some of it has to do with just capacity, which, the capacity for these different departments to review everything. And I think there's a question do they need to review everything? And if the answer is yes, now at least, using technology to accelerate that process, that's definitely an opportunity. But you don't need AI review, permit reviews to go faster. You just need to, say this department doesn't need to check this, right? And just say that this is not necessary. And it is more important that we build more homes than that,
but that everyone is able to check all their boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like at some point, we've just got to make a decision, what is more important to us as a society.
What do you think the percentage of the boxes that have to be checked before you can start building, what percentage of those things probably don't even need to exist and just happen to be there because someone had to, create something, they have a job and their job is to create, basically issues.
Yeah. I mean,
hurdles.
I don't think you look at certain things and it's okay, this is totally stupid. Right. Mm-hmm. But if you really go into it, there's a reason it's there. And there was some problem that it was trying to solve, or some situation
edge case that it was trying to
avoid. Yeah, exactly. But then the result is there are some things that are just stupid, right? But they're kind of rare, right? The bigger problem is just you have this system that every little thing was well intentioned, had a good intention mostly, but then the result is that you just have this broken machine, right? If you kind of zoom out and say how many of the things that are part of the permitting process are safety critical, I mean it's less than 10% of the time is safety critical stuff.
Wow.
So if that's the lens, right?
So for your company, one of the major things is going to be basically figuring out, if it takes 100 days, let's say that you can't hit that typical or the fastest time, which is 104 days, I think you said. Let's say that you're doing that for every single house. How do you build the systems and processes so that you can run through those permitting steps faster so you can actually get houses built?
Yeah. So there was a point in time earlier this year where permits was the bottleneck, the biggest problem. I was working on it every day. Right. We've gotten out of that point in time, and I hope to stay out of that point in time.
How did you get out of that?
Rate, right? Just submitting, accelerating the process for the permits that we had in review, and escalating it to elected officials, state level, city level, county level, having those conversations, and they were helpful, and then also just moving faster on getting more permits submitted faster so that you could wait, basically accepting that it's going to take time, and then we're just going to have a big enough buffer that it's going to be fine.
So you're trying to bake in like an extra 65 or 75 days on every single build.
Yeah, you just submit early enough that it's not a problem anymore, and you're constantly feeding the factory.
This is what's bonkers to me, is that the people that have the most impact on many of these like hardware companies, especially in housing, are people that have no stake in you actually succeeding. Like, and so if they move faster, or like there's extra regulation, they don't get any, or there's like less regulation, you move faster, they don't get any benefit from it. They're not the people actually like getting the houses, and they don't get a bonus for you building a lot of houses. And I just think it's incredibly difficult to motivate people when the incentives are fucked.
I do think like the like, especially in California, like you're seeing this, like people are leaving California because there are not enough homes and housing is too expensive.
Yeah.
Like, and I think people, I think there's been a shift in at least the talk around these things in the last 3 years in a good way.
Yeah.
And we have seen a lot of state laws get passed that streamline certain aspects of zoning and building. Like, for example, all zoning codes in California have to be objective now. There cannot be subjective requirements in zoning.
What does that mean?
You can limit height, right? That's something you can measure. You can say all the homes have to be white. You can measure that. You can put a maximum size. You can't say they have to match the neighborhood character. You can't measure neighborhood character, right? So that's good, right? That's a shift in the right direction.
At least like what hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, you basically had to spend a bunch of money. I mean, it's crazy. You have to spend a bunch of money to design a home, and then like talk to the city and maybe try to convince them. Yeah, like convince them that you're within the right vibe of what they want.
Yeah.
Right, which is
you don't know the vibe that they want before you start. Actually,
you might know the vibe, but it's a vibe. It's not a concrete thing, right? It's not a specific thing that you can design to, and so that's like a good shift, and we need way more of that, right? Like frankly, there should be like a page limit. Your zoning code should only be X number of pages, like font size 10 minimum, right? You should not be able to have a 300-page zoning code.
Is that what it is right now?
I don't know. It's a lot.
And isn't each different zoning code each city has its own regulations, which means like you can figure out one process really well, but then you go to another. You go from LA to, is there even different parts of LA that have different zoning codes and stuff themselves?
Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah. So you have different districts, right? You'll have like R1 or R2 districts within LA City. Right. And then LA City has a different zoning code from Santa Monica City or Culver City or Beverly Hills. So, you look at like Southern California, I ran these numbers. I forget the exact number, but it was something like there's 80 cities within LA County, something like that. And each of those cities probably has at least 5 zoning codes, right? So you're looking at hundreds of zoning codes, and like each of those districts is like 10 pages, right? So you're looking at, to know how to build in LA County, in every city, in every neighborhood, you're looking at like minimum 1,000 pages.
How much of your time is spent doing things that you genuinely enjoy and feel like, outside of the whole regulation stuff, like how much of your time is spent doing stuff that you enjoy and you feel like you're genuinely pulling a lever to push the company forward versus just time suck because of stuff that you have to do?
So there's a lot of things that pull a company forward that I don't enjoy, but I enjoy pulling the company forward. Yeah. If that makes sense. Right. So it's still actually rewarding to solve. But yeah, like I wish I'd never had to read zoning code ever and it wasn't a problem. That'd be nice.
There's like a number of startups that are really trying to do like manufactured housing where you're building everything in a single location and then you're shipping it out. What's been the process for building this and making it work and actually like output panels that you can go ship to a site?
So we started off in a much smaller factory than this. This is 80,000 square feet. We started off in 10,000 square feet. A big part of like rolling the design in, going from like concept and a prototype to, building it repeatedly, is wrangling first like that information problem and making sure that the right parts are in the right place at the right time so that you can even build it, right? Like that is actually, that alone is hard.
I know, it's fucking difficult. Yeah.
Right. And then it's like building it well, right? So training your technicians, helping them with better tooling, right? More ergonomic tooling, better tooling, faster tooling, easier tooling, changing the design to make it easier to build, right? Like it's this constant feedback loop, right? Where you've got your engineering team on the line, watching the process, seeing, the thing that you thought was going to be hard, sometimes it's actually really easy. And then there's this other thing you didn't even think of that's the hard part of the process. And
can you go into like what's that been like?
Yeah, I mean, for our walls, for example, we have foam, like insulated foam walls, and turns out like, once you iron out like the timing and the material movement, getting the foam in place was pretty easy and to the right specs, like consistently, right? You got to have temperature control and all these things that we have. But then once you get there, it's easy. You can do it repeatedly. Creating the chases for your plumbing and electrical actually turned out to be like the most labor intensive part of that process.
Why?
Because you're cutting it out and it's just like, it's messy and so we actually ended up, our engineer, he built a new tool so that the chases were just built into every panel when you made the foam part to begin with. And you just delete the step.
Yeah.
Right. And that saved a ton of time. And because we didn't think that it was going to be as time consuming as it ended up being.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just made the extra investment in the tooling and, made it work. So that's like a big improvement we rolled in the last couple months.
What have been the biggest learnings so far, going from just the first few houses built to now having built many, many houses? What have been the biggest things where you would not have expected them to be problems, but they just turned out to be problems? And then also, I guess on the factory side, like actually building the panels isn't that hard, but putting them all together correctly in a relatively fast time frame on site is very difficult.
How important the information side of this is, I underestimated that. Because you see videos of your tour factories, right? And you see the automation, and you're like, wow, that's cool. Or
you see the shit out of people.
You see the production line, and you're like, okay, that looks hard to set up, right? Setting up a production line with like a good throughput is hard. The information part of the problem, you don't really see it, right? You see the results of it, right? A stopped line, but you don't. It's less tangible, but it's incredibly important to a factory running well and the whole operation running well.
When you're building a car, you're buying a car, you're pretty much buying the same car as the next guy, and maybe you do like a wrap or something afterwards and it's a different color.
Yeah.
For this sort of thing, I think most people generally want a very customized house. And I think for every single house that you built so far, it's like customized to the what the person actually wants.
Yeah, it's like 85%. 85% of the homes are like custom floor plans.
Yeah.
And then within that, there's variations, right? So different floor options, different appliance options, different storage materials. Do you want your awnings or not? Like if you're facing south, you probably want awnings for, improve energy efficiency. Bug screens, there's like configuration options, but then like that's just within the same layout. When we talk about, customizing layout, I mean, it's practically infinite.
Yeah.
Right. The number of configurations that of a home that you can build with the cover, Lego blocks is for all practical purposes infinite.
So when you're thinking about like scaling up something where every single house is going to be custom, how do you do that efficiently?
It has to be a true system where you do have a finite set of Lego blocks, right? Like parts, and those parts are made in a standardized way and then combined to create the unique thing, right? So like being really clear around, okay, the end result is unique. That doesn't mean every single part has to be unique. That's what we're doing, right? That's super key to making it scale, right? So we have, but you don't notice it, right? Like if someone comes to us and they describe their home that they want, like we can get really, really close to what they want. And those, some people might say that they're limitations, but it also Like it breeds a level of efficiency and focus on quality. Like by not doing anything, the things that we do, we get really good at. That's the other thing. Like when you compare with conventional construction, it's a shame, right? Because you have these multi-million-dollar homes where people spend, years of their lives designing and engineering them, right? And coming up with really clever ways to build something that look and function great. And then that never gets done again.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have this, and there's a beauty to that. And there is a role for that in society, right? Like, we should be building cathedrals, right? And incredible works of architecture. Every home doesn't need to be that. And so by standardizing kind of the kit of parts, right? The Lego blocks, you can make those Lego blocks much better because you can build it once, learn from it, and like iterate, right? And so you're getting compounding in a space that historically didn't have it from a quality and product standpoint.
And is the reason why the assembly, like the on-site assembly, is such a bitch, is it because every single one, even though it may be the same kit of parts, it's a different house every single time? And so figuring out the process for, creating that specific structure is a unique thing every single time.
I mean, it's not like we still build homes, it's like much easier than putting together a conventional home. Like we've made it a lot easier. It's just, it's not as easy as it needs to be. Like our standard for that is just really like where we're trying to get to is very high, right? So we want to be building a home like the one that we're in less than a week.
Wow.
Right? Like with normal hours, not,
pulling 22-hour days for 7 days straight.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so because we think that that's key to scaling, because there is a labor shortage of skilled construction trades, right? So there's a labor shortage, right? And that's kind of a big driver here. So we need to make it really easy and really scalable so that you've got production lines running with robots that are building homes extremely efficiently, right? Building the panels for homes extremely efficiently. And then those panels get shipped on a regular flatbed truck, can get assembled without all this heavy machinery on site by people who didn't necessarily spend, 20 years apprenticing on how to, be the best craftsperson in this area, which we need those people, right? But there's just not enough of them. And then it comes together, it just assembles super easily, right? Like that's where we're going to. And so, and that assembly process for us today, like we've made a ton of progress. And we took it down from 120 days down to a month and then 3 weeks. And we're making progress on that. But we've got a high bar for ourselves for how efficiently we want to get that process.
So when you think of like the massive housing companies right now that are building like a few 100,000 houses a year, why are they not doing something like this?
So a lot of them are very interested in this because they are seeing a shortage of trades, and
they have the same problems as you have.
The same problems. Yeah. In some places, the problems are so extreme that even though there's a demand for homes, they just can't build there, right? Because there aren't enough people to build the homes. So it's definitely a real, like, this is why there's a housing shortage, right? So they are looking at, and they're very interested in this. Some of them have even made investments in companies doing this, right? Because it's a very real problem. One of the challenges is that the construction supply chain is actually relatively efficient because everyone does things a certain way. And so for some things we use conventional, suppliers and materials. Other things we do things differently. And for those things where we do things differently, our approach has to be so much more efficient
that it overcomes
the scale that the entire construction industry has. Right.
It's a little bit like the energy industry, where you just have like trillions of dollars worth of infrastructure already there, pipelines built, that sort of thing.
That the alternative is like, yeah,
you have to overcome and also like subsidies.
Right.
How do you actually like get this company to a point where it's building 100,000+ homes a year? Like what is the roadmap to get there?
Yeah, I mean, first scale up, scale up. I look at this as like pilot production, right? Where you're testing out the system and scaling it, right? So scale it up, get the product and process working, and then like go to some real scale with automation, right? A big factory, and at that point you're doing at least thousands of homes, probably tens of thousands of homes a year, right? And you're close to the median uh, price point that homes are being built at that point. And then from there, like further investing in manufacturing and in product development to cut down on the material costs, but also the labor that it takes to put all of this together and bring it down to like below what it takes to build a house. So there's a couple of steps to get there, but yeah, the first step is like prove to the world that this is a better way to build, right? And show that it works, and then track the key like technical KPIs behind it that prove to that scalability.
How are you thinking about like designing your team in order to get, rally a group of people around this idea? Like, how are you finding amazing talent?
We've got an incredible team, and a big part of that is getting people that have like a very wide range of experience. So like we have some people from within the construction industry, right? Our head of product engineering was the structural engineer behind the Apple campus in Cupertino, for example.
Really?
Yeah, so he was the lead structural engineer on that project, and so he's seen like the cutting edge of structural engineering. He built a hospital on the fault line in Riverside. He built a stadium, right? So like really knows how to push the bounds on structural engineering and what's possible there, right? And make so it's like getting like the best from within the industry, but then also pairing those people with people from outside of the construction world, right? So we've got people from manufacturing, that have worked at Tesla, SpaceX, that have built automated warehouses and production, like automated production lines, like all sorts of things, Ferrari, right? And it's putting those people together to solve the problem, because the solution doesn't come from doing like construction really well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Like we're not just trying to, I mean, we are trying to build homes really well, but it's taking things that other industries are much better at, manufacturing, rapid assembly, design for manufacturability, and bringing those things into an industry that hasn't seen much of that.
When I went and interviewed Jim Belosic, he said that he doesn't actually like to tour manufacturing like a normal sheet metal or something factory. What he wants to tour is, the people that are making cosmetics or the people that are making apparel or other things, so that you can kind of understand how other people have done things and then bring that into his own company. Are you thinking about it the same way?
Yeah, for sure. Like I love touring like all factories. If there's a another factory building homes, I also like to tour those too. But I think the most fascinating factories I've seen are like automotive factories, for example. I think that's kind of the probably the pinnacle of engineering and manufacturing today, right? It's incredible, right? The scale and efficiency and repeatability and quality of automotive is like insane.
It's like one of the only mass manufactured huge products in the United States, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, if you think about a car, in some ways, it is actually very similar to a home, right? People go inside of them. They have air conditioning. They have to be structurally sound. I mean, in this case for like impacts, but it's not that, I mean, it's different, but you have earthquakes, you have wind, you have dynamic loads or cars, but there's a structural component to it. There's a design component to like the look and feel and fit and finish of the car and the home. You've got moving parts, a lot more moving parts than a home. There's fire safety. There's actually there's a lot of similarities between automotive and construction and like homes. And so I think that's like, obviously they're very different industries, but the fact that you can buy a Toyota Camry for like, I think it's like $280 a square foot, something like that. You'd find it very difficult to build a home in LA today. Like, as a solo person, building a home in LA for that price, very hard.
Yep.
And that's kind of crazy that a car, which is so complex, like, is
10,000 parts.
Yeah, it's insanely complex, right? Like all these motorized windows, like all these things you take for granted, is cheaper than a home, which is like all flat surfaces, 90-degree angles. Like
hypothetically, or at least in theory, it should be incredibly simple to build.
Yeah, like the home should be 10 times cheaper than the car on a cost per square foot standpoint, but it's not, right? And like if you look at like how those two things are made, it's night and day. They're opposites, and that was actually one of the big inspirations for Cover was like looking at cars and just seeing the level of efficiency that they're built at and the quality.
Final question: what's the hardest thing you've overcome?
Oh, that's I don't know. I tend to like block out a lot of the pain.
Many people do.
I don't like I try to remember the lessons, but like not remember the pain. Or I don't know if it's not even, it's like subconscious. It just I don't remember as much of the pain. No, there's been like a lot of hard stuff. Technical problems, non-technical problems, getting people to work together well. Sometimes that doesn't work. It's hard. It's really hard to just like pinpoint one thing. It's hard.
It's just generally getting up in the morning and doing the thing and then doing it again and again and again.
That part's not hard. That part's not hard. Like this is a very important problem to solve that I want to solve. And so I'm not going to stop until I solve it.